Welcome on in, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined by Jason Caldwell. And as we predicted when we did the post-game pod after the Iron Bowl, it had a very short shelf life because Auburn turned around and made a hire quite quickly. I'll have to look at the timestamp for when they announced it, or at least when we posted it, but it could not have been later than 9:56 a.m., something like that. It was right before the team meeting at 10 a.m. If you're listening to this, you know by now that USF head coach Alex Golesh is Auburn's new head coach. He becomes the 33rd coach in Auburn football history, ending a 4-week search to find a replacement for Hugh Freeze. And Jason, it's been a jam-packed Sunday, as these things always are. It was a couple days ago that Golesh's name started to kind of resurface as the John Sumrall saga turned Florida's direction. Florida, by the way, officially hired Sumrall today. But it was clear that this was a guy that John Cohen really, really liked during the interview process. We were told he interviewed early on, and Auburn's impression was he would take the job if it was offered. Like, he was really gung-ho about the opportunity. And when it didn't work out with Sumrall, I think some of these other guys were kind of prickly, as you and I had reported. You really weren't sure about some of these guys. So John Cohen turned back to a guy that he was impressed with in the very beginning and said, come on with it. And now Auburn's turning to a young 41-year-old offensive coach to try to inject some life and get the program back to a healthier place.
Yeah, really interesting hire. You look at him and you look at it offensively, what they've been able to do. And you know, we were told a little bit today, like I think, you know, his quarterback coach, co-OC, has been kind of the play caller for them. So that's a little different than, I think that's what you need. So I think that's important. Look, offensively, they've been great. This year, they were, number 4 team in the country in total offense.
Yes.
Quarterback is the national leader in total offense. They score points in bunches. I mean, like all the things you're looking for, and they do it a bunch of different ways. I think I counted 8 games where they ran for 200 yards and threw for 200 yards in the same game. That's pretty good. So interesting hire, but you start digging into them a little bit. And listen, we said this before. There's no guarantee. No guarantee that any hire you make is going to be the right one. No guarantee that any hire you make is going to be the wrong one. Do I feel like this guy has what it takes to go out and win games? I do. I think can he kind of keep some of this roster? Most of this roster, we'll see. Nathan, just from talking from folks around, I think they feel like, hey, we feel like we're going to be able to keep most of these guys in place. But being at a place like USF, I don't think they're like, oh gosh, it's going to be over with if you lose a player or two. They know that's going to happen. They'll go out and get somebody else. I think that's maybe the excitement of this one is, look, these guys just, in the end, Nathan, we both talked to people and they said one of the things they wanted was somebody that wanted to be at Auburn. And they found like, hey, this guy wanted to be at Auburn. That was a big deal. And so I think when push comes to shove, that was an important part of this as well.
Yeah, and John Sumrall, look, I think people we talked to today were not shying away from the fact that Auburn had him as their guy throughout the search. But it was very clear he was kind of, once the Florida job introduced itself as a possibility, he wanted to play both sides. It did not end up being a money thing. You and I talked about it not being a money thing, and then it comes out today, Golesh is going to be making $7.4 million. Sumrall's making $7.5 million. So, I mean, it's not a money thing. He just made a very clear decision to go coach at Florida. And again, Auburn turned around and went back to Golesh. Yeah, I mean, tremendous offensive acumen for this guy. He's the influential, probably the most influential branch on the Josh Heupel coaching tree. That was kind of his big break. He had assistant jobs up in the northeast at Iowa State and Illinois before becoming the co-OC, sort of right-hand man to Heupel when Heupel was at UCF. It was there that he was part of Dylan Gabriel's passing attack. They were number 4 nationally. Then Tennessee, then the 2-year stretch at Tennessee, where Hendon Hooker throws for more than 6,000 yards, 58 touchdowns, and only 5 picks. I was looking it up just to confirm before this, Jason, talking to our buddy Ben McKee at our Vols 247 site. Golesh was the primary play caller at that time. Josh Heupel gave him credit as the play caller then, and Tennessee had the number one offense in the country in 2022. And so you're hoping to now translate that back to the SEC. But like you said, quarterback play, all of it offensively was off the charts, has been off the charts for him throughout his career. He's done it at USF all basically with one guy, Byron Brown, who's a former 3-star recruit from North Carolina. Like you said, number one nationally in total offense this season. He's got a year of eligibility left, by the way. I don't think that is insignificant just nowadays as we sort of talk about this thing. But let's shift for a second, Jason, talk about the DJ Durkin question, because I don't know how long the shelf life will be of this, depending on what we hear about DJ Durkin. But we reported today that Golesh is set to meet with him tonight. It sounds like the ball is in DJ Durkin's court. I think from everything we've heard, Golesh wouldn't mind having him and actually be willing to give him a raise. And he's already one of the highest paid defensive coordinators in the country. But you talked about it with me a little bit today. It's tough for these guys to have that mindset shift. And I do think DJ Durkin was in a place over the last week. He legitimately thought he had a shot at becoming Auburn's next head coach. Now you make that shift back to defensive coordinator. Is that something he's willing to do, or does he want to go try to be a head coach somewhere?
Yeah, I think that's the question. Obviously, family likes it from what we understand. They're happy in Auburn. I think that's a big deal. But you're right. It's the tough thing to go, hey, look, that's the job I wanted. I think the positive is that it's not a demotion. You're not getting demoted. You're still the same job you would have been in, and you might make more money doing it. So it probably comes down to just a matter of, hey, do these guys mesh together? Do they feel like, hey, do we feel like we fit together? And we know DJ Durkin. From everything we've heard of Alex Golesh, it feels like they would fit because they're similar in that it is hard, physical, demanding. They coach guys hard. They expect high expectations, all the things. That's what we've heard about Alex Golesh as well. And so you start thinking about that, going, look, it would seem like those guys would mesh together pretty good. But look, sometimes it may be personality, make sure you're on the same page, all the things. And that's just something you have to talk about. But obviously, if you could make that work, it'd be big. If not, if you're Auburn, then, you move forward and you got a lot of money to spend on a defensive coordinator if you can't make things work out. So, yeah, you're right. I would expect that we might know something on this one probably tomorrow as we get ready to meet Alex Golesh with the media at noon tomorrow.
Yes, noon Monday. He'll be introduced as the head coach in his formal press conference. You're talking about the staff. There was one guy we already know of, and that is a very familiar face. Cody Burns makes his return to Auburn. He was a guy who when he was at Tennessee, him and Golesh were together. He was the receivers coach while Golesh was the offensive coordinator. Then Cody Burns spent some time in the NFL. He was the receivers coach for the Saints for 3 years. And then when he was out of a job last year, Golesh said, hey, come on back, be the receivers coach for me and co-OC at USF, and decided to bring him right along. That was pretty much, it seemed like, from everything we heard, Jason, that was no question from the very beginning, him wanting Cody Burns to come with him. So that is one assistant slot we know of filled right now. An interesting note today that we were told, and it was kind of brought to our attention, Golesh was coaching at Illinois when Vontrell King-Williams was a player there. And so obviously he has that connection with Auburn's defensive line coach. Today was a team meeting. Today was meeting with players. As we understand it, tonight and into tomorrow is meeting with this staff. But you and I talked about it today. He wants to get this thing done. Like, it kept popping up. He wants to get this thing done now. Like, he wants these position coaches in place as fast as possible. You mentioned Joel Gordon, the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach at USF. It seems like I would be stunned if he doesn't bring him along as his OC here, just because, like you said, he is his right-hand man, play caller kind of guy. Interesting to see what he does at defensive coordinator, and we anticipate there would be a bunch of support staffers that come with him from USF as well. I think this was a guy who was hired and had a plan in place right away and was like, get me on the plane, because every second I'm not in the building is a second I'm losing and not working. It definitely seems like he has got that type of personality now.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. This is a guy that works lots of hours. He's a football junkie. That's what he does. So we've heard a lot about that. And yeah, you're right. I mean, how do you mix current staffers, current support personnel, Guys like Will Redmond, Kenyatta Watson, all them with guys he knows from USF, and how do you put all these people together and make it work as one? I think that's a lot of work to be done in the next few days. That's why decisions like this, most everybody wanted these things to get done very quickly, which is why Auburn wasn't the only coach to hire. I mean, the other place to hire a coach, Florida did as well. Lane Kiffin is officially now at LSU. Arkansas hires Ryan Silverfield from Memphis. Look, all these schools realize the importance of getting this thing done as quickly as possible with this upcoming portal. Obviously, signing day Wednesday for Auburn, but getting and keeping your players and making sure that those guys are good in a good spot when this thing opens up on January 2nd is a big, big deal right now.
Yeah, something I forgot to mention as well, from everything we've heard, Florida is willing to let Sumrall coach. I'm not sure if that's been put in the press release for them or not. Willing to let him coach the rest of the season. And for all the reasons you just mentioned, Auburn didn't want to do that. Maybe a conversation was there to be had about the American title game. That's just
maybe that one, yeah.
But the playoff has the potential to be a 3-4 week long process, and Auburn just wanted a guy to needed a guy to get in their building. As we talked about today too, you mentioned retaining this roster and him going to work on that. Of course, that's one of the checklists right now for Alex Golesh. But contrary to what I thought going into today, I guess I didn't look into it that much. The NCAA rule change with the portal window is not that once you hire a coach, you have 5 days and then the portal triggers for that team. I thought that was the case. I thought they made that change from the 30-day window previously, whereas you fired a coach and then you have 30 days.
Yeah.
They actually sent a memo in October that they updated their change. So it's just kind of gone over some people's heads. As long as you hire a coach before the January 2nd window opens, you're good. Meaning that's no small thing. He has a month to work on this roster. He has until January 2nd. These guys can't go anywhere. They can
they can say they're going in the portal,
but they cannot enter the portal until January 2nd.
Yeah, they can say, "Hey, I plan to enter the portal January 2nd," but you can't take visits. Can't get contacted by other coaches.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's important because you're right. Like roster retention for this Auburn roster because of the young talent on both sides of the ball, it's going to be a big deal. And so I think look, they started it right away. I mean, Alex Golesh, Cody Burns were there. Like they were meeting with players and talking to guys and doing some of those things already today, meeting some of the recruits as well and talking to them. I mean, look, that's part of it. And a big part of it right now is making sure that you put all those pieces in place.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be it's a busy day, busy few days now leading up to signing day. Shouldn't be a giant signing class for this team on Wednesday. Jason, just talk for a minute from the recruiting perspective of about not necessarily guys, but what this will look like in terms of them patching together a 2026 class, because obviously they're getting in late. It's going to be a lot of work here, and really moving forward will be their full recruiting classes.
Yeah, no, I think you look at it and, the interesting ones are, kind of what happens with a couple of guys. I think you look at it and Braylon Womack's a guy that, obviously Texas A&M's in the mix, and, he's a big Durkin guy. That could impact him some. But I think you look at him. Another one is a guy like Peyton Falzone. Quarterback is such a different deal. You want your own quarterback. You like your guys, they got to take a look at him and decide here in the next couple of days is that a guy we want to bring in as part of this class? I think that's still a question mark, but obviously was here this weekend, had a chance to sit down and talk to the coaches today, but, talked to several guys, talked to Shadarius Tootle and Parker Pritchett, some of these guys, and they're good. I think Auburn has put themselves in a really good position. Jace Matthews seems like he's in a pretty good spot as well. But Auburn's put themselves in pretty good positions for a couple other guys. That visited, Wilson Zaire was there and hung around for a while today. Obviously Shadarius Tootle and I think Jaquez Wilkes is good, in good shape. So you start looking at it going, look, probably 10, 11 guys early on in this class, give them a chance then to maybe recruit a few other guys, for the actual signing period in February. But look, it'll be, again, roster, some pieces out of the portal. I would expect to see Auburn bring in 3 or 4 guys from USF, maybe a fefew more from that squad, depending on who they are, depending on numbers that you have in certain positions. Some of those things, I would think, look, they got a young tight end that's a pretty good player. If you're Auburn, you need tight end depth. There's no question about that. So maybe you go get a built-in piece, a guy that knows your offense and is comfortable in it. So I would expect at least a little bit of that as well.
I mean, when you kind of zoom back out after a hectic day today, it is a step out, I think, for Auburn. This hire is. It is. I hesitate to say outside the box because Golesh is a guy that's been talked about for big jobs all offseason. Or excuse me, since the coaching cycle started. Arkansas thought they had him, and I believe Ole Miss was really pushing to try to get him.
Yeah,
they end up promoting Pete Golding, of course, to replace Lane Kiffin, but it's not necessarily the most surprising hire in the world, especially with the way that things ended. But it does feel like it differs a little bit from what we've come to expect these last few Auburn hires. Brian Harsin was a G5 coach, but the fact that Golesh has an understanding of the SEC, I think, is a big thing, and just coaching style wise, having a guy who's sort of the young wonder kid has an offensive system and is going to abuse it until somebody figures out a way to stop it is, I think, a different approach. And Auburn's going to try to give him as many resources as they can to try to keep that offense rolling for as long as possible.
Yeah, and I think completely different personality.
Absolutely.
Alex Golesh feels like an offensive coach that has a personality of a linebacker. That's what it seems like a little bit. You think about him, you go, look, it feels like aggressiveness in your face. I mean, like the word edge and is on the hat. Like, I think that's the mentality, the mindset. And as we're talking to a couple people today, and like thinking back to early on in their days at USF, where Tom Herman ran up a score and kicked an onside kick and did some things to them, and beat them the next year. And basically, Alex Golesh just said, "Look," just ignored him at midfield and said, "Okay, we're fine, we're good. I did my thing," and they won handily the next year. And look, I think this guy has an attitude, but I think it's an attitude of going out and winning and kind of development and what they're doing offensively. But listen, they play defense too, and they get after you, and they're physical. And so, yeah, it is a little bit different, but it's not Brian Harsin outside the box. This is Auburn outside the box for the first time, because Brian Harsin would have been outside the box for anybody almost if you came this side of Colorado. Probably it was pretty much outside the box. Alex Golesh feels like a guy that understands exactly what big time football is about. When you start talking about where he's been and the jobs he's had, so he understands big time football. He understands football in the South, and I think it's a really interesting dynamic to bring a guy like this in now to Auburn, because look, if you can start scoring a few points and legitimately doing it and being successful doing it, it can change things pretty quickly for you.
I think it's very boiled down and simple to say, but I think they want their version of. It'd be great if he was their version of Josh Heupel. Like, it's that sort of hire. And funny enough, Heupel went and was the head coach at UCF, and Golesh goes and is the head coach at USF after both having SEC coordinator jobs. And I mean, I think that's your goal, right? Is to have somebody who has this offensive style that works and try to inject some excitement, because like you said, developing defense is very important in the long run for winning championships and being a championship level team. But having an offense gives you that initial boost even faster. Like, if you can, I don't remember what Tennessee record wise, any of that, but it's like, it did not take long for them under Josh Heupel to jump up and immediately be a threat because of that. Maybe they wouldn't do it every game, and maybe their recruiting wasn't where they needed it to be yet, but like, they had the potential to score 45 points in every single game they played. And that's just a dangerous thing. And like you said, it's something Auburn has not had in quite some time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you look at it and you go, USF, you go kind of the mid-50s in scoring defense this year, giving up 23 points a game, but 14 points a game at home, giving up a few more on the road. But you look at that league and you start going, man, like, there's some teams that can score in that league. And you start talking about, some of those teams you play, and you're going to give up some points. I mean, they gave up some points. The most points they gave up was they gave 49, but it was at Miami, and it was a week after they beat Florida in Gainesville. So you go back to back for USF, and it's at Florida and at Miami. That's a difficult situation for anybody. It's a really difficult situation for a USF team, especially when you beat Florida and you're riding that high all week. And so if they run it, quarterback is a big part of things. He likes athletic quarterbacks that can run. And you think back to Hendon Hooker and guys like that at Tennessee. And hey, listen, the quarterback coach, if a guy like Joel Gordon were to come with him, that's a guy that coached Brock Purdy at Iowa State. And so you start to think about all the connections and the quarterback development that has been done. And I think that's something that needs to be remembered and maybe with a check mark beside it going, look what they've done at that position.
Yeah, and it begs the question of what they'll do at that position. Ashton Daniels has an opportunity to be back next season. Deuce Knight has an opportunity to be back next season. The idea of Deuce Knight in this offense is pretty fun. I mean, he's kind of tailor-made for this. But not that we've heard anything about it. It's day one, but when you have the number one total offense player in the entire country, if Byron Brown does hit the portal, like, in my opinion, what else is NIL for if not to go get that guy and just try to bring him in, see if you can keep Deuce, and if you don't keep Deuce, well, you got to go season by season at this point.
And that's it, and it's part of this where it's just different. It just is. I don't think there's any question that's a guy they want to keep, and they feel like he could be a really, really big, interesting piece to the puzzle for them at quarterback position. But you're right. If you can go get your guy that led the nation in total offense, still has a year left to play and knows your system and do those things, it kind of feels like, look, that's where you've seen success at several places where it's like it's coordinator and coach and quarterback coming together and doing some things. And while I think Auburn has a good spot at quarterback with Ashton Daniels and Deuce Knight, you also, I don't think you would hesitate if you're saying, hey, look, we're going to bring our guy in because I know what he can do. So, well, it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to get into here, and we'll have more tomorrow from his press conference. Just not only getting to know Alex Golesh and getting those questions asked to him, but probably getting even more news. You mentioned DJ Durkin. That's something we don't expect to take very long. The coaching staff should probably come together here pretty soon, and then it's off and running, and it's roster retention and it's all that as this coaching search comes to a close. Yeah, you mentioned what he excuse me, I had to sneeze. You mentioned what he accomplished at USF. I didn't even touch on that. He goes 23-15 in 3 seasons there. 9-3 is kind of this season. You mentioned the wins at the beginning of the year, ranked Boise State. Florida was ranked at the time. That sort of propelled him a little bit into a bigger spotlight. They were 8-37 in the 4 years before he got there. So they tried the Jeff Scott experiment, the Clemson offensive coordinator, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah. And only 4 wins the three years before. Yeah, so they won 4 games in the 3 years before he took over.
So you have a guy who, in his first time as a head coach, built up a program pretty quickly. Now USF was not without resources, but I think Auburn is also not without resources. Right. They're just downtrodden right now and have the opportunity to sort of inject some life back into them. And so really interesting hire and in the end of this coaching search. And it's been a fun day over at auburnundercover.com. And I don't know about you, Jason, I'm just glad to have this thing done.
Glad to have it over with, because I would guess combined Saturday night, Sunday morning, we probably have 6 hours of sleep between us, maybe. I don't know if we have that much, maybe. Been a long night, long day, long Sunday. It'll be a long Monday, and signing day's Wednesday, basketball Wednesday night, and we start the Super 7 Wednesday in Birmingham as well. So there's not much downtime. So hopefully we can get a little bit of rest, but thankfully it is done. We know who Auburn's head coach is.
Yes, and we are looking forward to continuing to talk about it, learn about it, write about it. If you would like to do that alongside us and get to know everything that we have to know and want to talk about, head over to auburnundercover.com. Still running 75% off. I said through the end of the coaching search. Haven't cut us off yet, so be sure to get in there and do that. All sorts of all sorts of stuff today. There's stuff from a couple hours ago that isn't even on our homepage anymore because Christian's coming in firing with recruiting stuff. And so be sure to head over there, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us through this coaching search. Did our best to keep you guys informed at every twist and turn, and it ends up with USF head coach Alex Golesh taking over on the Plains. Reminder, press conference at noon Central Time on Monday. Until then, probably later in the week when Jason and I will catch up with you guys again. We'll talk to you all later. Everybody have a good start to your week.